Jason Yochim is the CEO for the Saskatoon Region Association of Realtors and the new president of the Greater Saskatoon Chamber of Commerce. I've invited Jason today to give us a little bit of insight into the housing market and a little bit of the economic picture coming up. Jason, thank you again for joining us.
Well, thank you, Randy, for having me on the show.
I want to talk maybe first about your primary role as the CEO of SWAR. Tell us a little bit about the first half of the year and how we closed off 2015 and what you think might be happening right about now.
Sure. Basically, to go back to the end of 2015, we were down about 3% overall for our volume and for a number of sales that we had. Last year, we actually peaked, though, at a record of just over 2,000 active listings for sale in the Saskatoon area. So that was kind of a high watermark for us. And when you have those kind of inventory levels, then you start to see normally a little bit of a decrease in price, but that wasn't the case for Saskatoon. We held pretty steady, about $350,000 for the average house.
Does that give you some indication in terms of the economy or just the housing market? Do we look at that as a bit of a barometer of what's happening in Saskatoon? Because it still seems strong when you drive in all the new areas.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you do have to consider the economy, and I don't think it's any surprise to anybody that we are facing some challenging circumstances. But I think the overall optimism in Saskatoon is still pretty good, and we still see a number of higher-end homes. When I say higher-end, we're 700, 750,000 range, and that helps sustain your average sale price, even though the number of units selling is down from last year.
So that 2,000 high water mark, that's indicative of the number of listings that are available for sale. Did the transactions happen? In other words, were the sales happening, or were they just listings that were offered?
Well, we did see about a decrease of about 3 or 4% in the number of transactions year over year through 2015 and even the first half of 2016. But considering that things were pretty strong here in 2013 and 2014, it's really not that bad when you look at, say, the 5-year average. Interestingly enough, if we look at August numbers, which I just received today, it was up quite a bit actually over last August. So we're quite pleased to see that more activity is taking place on the sales side.
Are you getting a sense from your membership that the market is still fairly warm? I mean, we hear about that cross-country, but all indications seem to still point to a fairly stable market compared to, I like the 5-year average because we have had a bit of an increase.
Yes.
Over that 5 years, are you seeing us still in that, that curve that we're not too extreme? We're still pretty strong, though?
Yeah, if you look at the beginning of that, our increases in our market haven't been dramatic, as you know, over the years. And even the decline we just went through hasn't been that dramatic. And I still feel the optimism is good out there. And I'm a firm believer in the fact that if you price property to the market, it will sell. So even if we're in a little bit tougher times financially, there's still buyers out there wanting a home. There's still people wanting to move up into a home or move out of a home into retirement, or first-time home buyers. And there's always business to be done, but if people price to market, get professional advice, then homes will sell in any market.
What can you share with us in terms of the condo market? We always hear all sorts of things. Set us straight on what's happening with those inventories and prices in that field.
Sure. I think what happened years ago, there was a strong demand for the condos because that entry-level price range was fairly needed in the marketplace. So the builders responded by getting a lot of housing starts out there in the multifamily. But then as the economy started to slow down, those properties were coming to market. So you had a bit of an oversupply in the multifamily. So what you're seeing this year are two things. You're seeing a lot more of those units that aren't selling going into the rental pool, and that's creating a higher vacancy rate, of course. And the other thing you're seeing is a decrease in the number of permits by, I think, about 33% in the multifamily units for starts this year.
Share with us what you know about the affordable and entry-level housing. Is that something that's still fairly strong? Is it localized, or is it still in little pockets around the new divisions that are being built?
Affordable housing you'll typically find in some of the older areas, because then you're looking for that average price of $300,000 to $350,000 for a first-time buyer. So if you're wanting to move into some of the newer areas to get that, that's when you start looking at multifamily opportunities, whether they're townhouses, apartment-type complexes, that sort of thing. but they're still available in the existing single-family housing market.
So where is Saskatoon in the pack? If we're going to compare Western Canadian cities versus, I don't think it's fair to compare Windsor in some cases because it's a totally different economy.
Yes.
Where is Saskatoon in the pack in Western Canada?
I think we're doing actually quite well compared to some of our neighboring western cities. Certainly Calgary's feeling a lot more pain than we are. We're probably very similar to what Edmonton's experiencing. Their average sale price is sustaining itself. They're seeing a little bit of decrease in volume as far as transactions, and their inventory levels are a bit high, but not too bad.
Is there any optimism in the form of interest rates that you're hearing from the membership? Are people kind of cautious, or does the U.S. election seem to have a bit of a play on the interest rates at all?
It could have a play on it. I don't anticipate seeing any drastic changes or any changes at all in interest rates because with the exception of Toronto and Vancouver marketplaces, the rest of the country doesn't really need to see an increase in interest rates. It worries me that the government may try and make some decisions on that to try and curb some of that overheated housing in those two markets. My bigger concern is probably if the federal government steps in and decides that they want to raise the minimum down payment. That would put a lot of people into the marketplace, especially the first-time buyers.
Are there still opportunities for the first-time buyer, because you can't say it's a 20-year-old anymore? There might be someone who's in their 30s.
Yes.
Are they able to come up with that down payment today and still be able to function on a day-to-day basis with groceries and utilities and so on?
I think in most cases they are, Randy. There's a number of different programs out there. My son and daughter-in-law just bought their first house, and there's the graduate retention program. Also, for years we've had through our lobbying efforts the ability to go into your RSPs through the home buyers plan and access your money to be able to use that for down payment and closing costs. So there's ways to help them get into that house, and as long as the ratios are okay with as far as what they can afford to spend on a home every month for carrying costs, then I think it's still pretty attainable.
See a bit of a smile on your face when you see your kids move away from home into their own place. Tell us a bit about your volunteer role as the new president of the Chamber of Commerce. A very notable organization, been around for a long time in the city, even with the Board of Trade years ago. What prompted you to get involved, and how do you see things happening there?
I was excited to be involved with the board for probably the last 3 or 4 years. And you have an opportunity to help shape the business, economy, and environment for your city. And to be president, it's an honor and it's humbling to be able to lead such a strong group of directors there that represent so many different interests in our city. And I think it's a great time. We've got so much going for us in Saskatoon. You'll always see the doom and gloom in the media, but overall, I think there's a lot of positives with our city, a lot of good things happening, a lot of potential that's there if people are just willing to take a risk and step out. And our job is to create an environment in the business community to make that possible.
And I think that's a good thing for the attraction of new investment capital and people still looking, to Saskatoon as a beacon of sorts.
Yes.
Where do you see a lot of the activity happening? Is manufacturing still kind of getting by, or are we seeing more things on the R&D side or IT side, for example?
Manufacturing, I understand, is feeling a little bit more of a pinch because they do a lot of exporting to other countries, and some of those other countries are struggling with their economy. So I think that's being a little bit hard hit. We know in some of the resource sectors things aren't really great. So I think there's a lot of potential in health. There's a lot of potential in R&D. And typically in this province, we've got some really creative, entrepreneurial business people with a lot of great ideas, and they just need help and opportunities to get those ideas to market and start to distribute those products and services elsewhere.
Is the transportation network something that you see as something that is developing and it's emerging, not just so much with trucks and so on? We have 2 bridges underway and still the perimeter highway on board. But the rail system and moving tracks perhaps in Saskatoon, have you entertained any discussions on that?
We've been involved in discussions about that because it does create some issues within the city with getting products and services even within the city. And if there's emergency vehicles that are tied up at a crossing, that can be a very big concern as well. Otherwise, I think some of our bigger issues are getting farmers' grain to market. If the rail companies are able to accommodate that and get it out in a timely fashion, that's a big issue. And also getting our oil to market.
What is your primary concern, I guess, as the chamber president in the upcoming year? Do you see, we have a municipal election this
Yes.
fall. What do you see on the horizon into the winter that you're going to be working on and maybe your primary focus is?
Well, definitely the municipal election is one of our key focuses right now. It's very important, I think, that the community continues to prosper and to grow and be successful. And I know some people get a little afraid of that, but it trickles into everybody's life. If it's a matter of you having solid employment, some security in that area, your children, they're going to stay in the community after they get out of post-secondary instead of moving elsewhere. We've seen that happen in years past. And I think if people are afraid of a successful community or prosperous community, they just need to look west of us and talk to somebody in Calgary where their marketplace might be down 30%. And I don't think there's a lot of good stories that come out of that. So I think if we can connect the dots, how prosperity really helps the average citizen of Saskatoon, I think people will understand why it's important that we provide an environment for business to succeed in the city.
I think with that will come, you know, a rising tide raises all ships. So I think
Yes.
everything has to work. But I want to thank you very much for making time for us and letting us know that things are reasonably well out there and we're still firing on all cylinders.
Absolutely. I'm an optimist, so hopefully that can carry through to some.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Randy.
We'll be right back after this.